Good evening, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network. I'm your host, Reverend Jim Webb. I serve as the Senior Minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I'm also the author of the book, The Soul of Prosperity, as well as Prosperity from A to Z, Create Your Self-Manifesting Vision Board, and the upcoming 30 P's to Prosperity, which will be released on September 1st. So what we do on this show is we explore prosperity from all angles. We look at prosperity not only as money and stuff, but we look at prosperity as an inner energy of harmony, peace, joy, and fulfillment, and how we can cultivate that inner energy of harmony, peace, joy, and fulfillment so that it emanates from us and attracts its reflection in multiple forms. One form that prosperity could take is professional prosperity, where, in the words of Florence Scovel Shinn, we have a wonderful job with wonderful pay, where we provide a wonderful service in a wonderful way. It might include family prosperity, where our families are sources of support and harmony. It might include relationship prosperity at large, where all of our relationships reflect an inner harmony that we cultivate, because our outer relationships then show up as harmonious and supportive relationships. It might, of course, include financial prosperity, where we have enough resources of any type to live comfortably, freely, and without struggle. And so there are so many dimensions to prosperity, but they all involve our inner landscape, our inner energy. And that's where A Course in Miracles comes in. And that's why we call this the miracle of prosperity. Because as we continually develop the inner consciousness of prosperity, we need a miracle. A miracle being a shift in perception that causes us to know ourselves as deserving. And so as we apply all this knowledge, we naturally begin to attract and retain and sustain prosperity. So one of the aspects of prosperity that we're going to cover tonight is an aspect of our inner saboteurs. Now, in my book, The Soul of Prosperity, Chapter 9 covers many of the major inner saboteurs, those parts of us from within that sabotage our good because they are saying no when God is saying yes. And those are the major inner saboteurs. There are others as well. And one of the inner saboteurs that can affect us is one that I would call the inner stranger. It's the part of us that feels like a stranger in our own skin. The part of us that feels like no matter where we are, we may not fully belong there. The part of us that also, as a result of feeling like a stranger in a strange land, that part of us that may feel undeserving of the good of God because of our differences or because we feel strange. That's what I call the inner stranger. And that is very acute for many in the immigrant population because many immigrants feel like strangers in a strange land. And for them, it's an extremely acute feeling. For us, quite often, for many others, it's quite often a vague feeling that lives just beneath the surface. And that's especially true of very sensitive people on a spiritual path. For we acknowledge and embody all these spiritual truths that are different than most of the people around us in the world, and we feel strange. So tonight's episode is called Healing Your Inner Stranger for Prosperity. And that's what we're going to be discussing. But it's not just me discussing it. I've brought onto the program tonight my dear friend Sooyong Kim. As I was telling our producer, Reverend Michael Mangus, I've known Sooyong for over 20 years. Sooyong is the author, among other things, she's the author of the upcoming book, Immigrace, Healing the Immigrant Consciousness. And so Sooyong knows a lot about feeling like a stranger, and she's worked through a lot on her spiritual path that can help us all work through and heal our inner stranger so that part of us that feels strange no longer sabotages our good by feeling undeserving of it. Welcome, Sooyong.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. I love your book. It was Sooyong let me, I was honored to read excerpts of her book prior to its publication. And I absolutely love it. It's soulful, it's relatable, it's powerful, and it's healing. And some of it draws on Sooyong's own experiences that can help us relate to the inner stranger in all of us. Sooyong, being of Korean descent, grew up in Malaysia, then in Plainfield, New Jersey, where she went to a mixed school, part black, part white. Then, and if I'm getting the chronology wrong, let me know. Then in Philadelphia, first to an all black school, then to a mixed school, Girls High. I know Girls High. I went to Penn with some of the folks from Girls High. And then to an all white school in the northern suburbs. So she's had an experience of so many different cultures growing up, including her Korean culture, the Korean culture of her family. And this unique perspective caused Sooyong to feel a bit like a stranger from time to time, out of place. Now, Sooyong, did I get that right in terms of your background?
Yes, I did go to school in Korea as well before we moved to Malaysia when I was 7 years old. But those schools that you mentioned was during junior high, so you can well imagine the trauma and the drama during puberty.
Oh God, I mean, heck, if you're in a room full of clones, you still don't know who you are, and you still feel insecure. So just imagine being in a room full of strangers and feeling like a stranger with all the natural insecurities. Oh, I can imagine.
Yes, so that was quite an experience. But I guess my soul wanted to experience all those different types of people and those different places.
Yes, as A Course in Miracles says, oh no, the Bible says all things work together for the good. A Course in Miracles said, uh, suppose everything, past, present, and to be, was gently planned by the one who would lead you to your good. So it was all a part of your soul's process to lead you to your good. Because if I can put words in your mouth, it sounds like it caused you to develop a concept of yourself transcendent of any of those labels. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that is correct. Because I feel like I can really get along with really anybody from anywhere in the world right now.
God
And
knows
also,
if I told you.
I lived in New York City for 14 years, so you can well imagine it's a very multicultural place.
Yes, yes, exactly. So it sounds like you learned to relate to people more on a soul level, also because of your inner journey. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that is correct.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey and how you worked through the challenges of your inner stranger.
Well, I think a big part of it was really to accept myself as
Hmm.
a soul and to have that self love that I am enough, that I am good enough, really. And I'm just as good as anyone else because I mean, we are all the same, really, on a soul level. No one is better or worse than anyone else. So getting to that stage, and I'm also a student of A Course in Miracles, so that really helped a lot in my journey. Of course, before that, I had so many different things that I was into. You know, all the self-help books, all the the new age type stuff.
Yes,
The
yes.
drill.
I know the drill. And so, as you know, we're in our morning sessions we're covering right now. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me, which
Yes.
is the ultimate statement of transcendence. And that is something that you learned and adopted early on to heal your inner stranger.
Yes.
So, what advice would you have for others who may be struggling with an aspect of their own self acceptance?
Well, there are many different things that you can get into, but the chapter that you read was about ancestral healing. So
Yes.
I did a lot of research into my ancestors and into my family history. And both of my parents, they actually grew up in North Korea, the northern part of Korea, before it split into two.
Oh, okay.
And as you can imagine, my mom actually still has family relatives over there, and her sister wasn't able to get out. And we found out recently that she passed away about 10 years ago. But there's no communication still between the two countries. At least in East and West Germany, they could write letters to each other. But
Right.
yeah, North Korea is a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very interesting place to be from. I mean, I'm not really from there, but I mean, I was born in Seoul, South Korea, but my family origin is from North Korea.
North Korea. Wow.
So it's an interesting concept because my mother's family owned a lot of land over there, so of course they lost everything during the war and all that.
Right.
But the fact that we could actually go back once they reunify and take a look at where she grew up is kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's.
but doing the all the research and
Mhm.
then figuring out what kind of trauma people experience, as you can imagine, with the
Yes.
wars and
Yes.
the refugees and all that they experienced. I mean, it was a lot. And
Mm.
my mother's older sister actually was killed, and
Mm.
my grandfather had to bury her. And
Mm.
she was his oldest daughter, and my mom said that she saw him crying. So
Mm.
he cried 3 times in his life. So that was, I mean, it was really a really emotional experience for him. And to find
Mm.
out when people experience certain traumas and then to apply them to my life. I mean,
Yes.
certain people experience traumas when they're 33. And then when I was 33, I experienced certain things. And then later on, I could figure out, oh, okay, maybe this is a pattern and maybe I can take a
Yes.
look at it and heal it.
Yes.
And then I don't have to experience it the same way.
Yes. So,
And
what you're talking about, in a sense, is to some degree epigenetics.
yes,
How your how your family trauma, because it sounds like they were strangers even in their own land because they had to escape from North Korea to
hmm
South Korea during the
yes,
war.
hmm
And so it sounds like all of the trauma patterns of that, the death, the displacement, the terror, the uncertainty, and the loss not only of life, but of property and the loss of a way of life was an aspect of consciousness that was passed down to you, and you found yourself in that same energetic pattern because epigenetically it was transmitted through the DNA. And that's
yes,
fascinating.
yes. Because recently they have said that trauma can be passed down because they've done research with, for instance, Holocaust survivors and
Yes.
911 survivors and so forth. And
Yes.
before that, everybody said, "Well, no, you just inherit certain things, but not really trauma." But now they found out that we can inherit trauma as well. So to identify it and to heal it and to transform it can really bring us a lot of clearing and healing.
Absolutely. And one of the things you mentioned earlier, Sooyong, was so powerful. You mentioned that your healing was not only for you. A Course in Miracles says, "I am not alone in the effects of my healing." By you healing the pattern you will not pass that pattern on to future generations. And not only will you not pass it on to future generations, but you will also transmit from you a healed pattern that will support others in their healing as well. Because as A Course in Miracles says, when I am not alone in the effects of my healing. And it's been said that when we heal ourselves, we heal 7 generations back
Yes.
and 7 generations forward. So it sounds like this was a very important part of your soul's purpose, to bring healing to the inner stranger, that displaced, traumatized being that has never felt at home. Would that be accurate?
Yes. And I spent a week ago, I was in Southern California spending time with my brother and his family. And he has 3 boys who are 17, 15, and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, wow.
it was really interesting to see what they're going through, and the family dynamics and so forth. And at one point I said to them, just because you experience certain things doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing. I just kind of plant a seed, here and there.
Yes, yes. And your words planted a seed, but I would be willing to bet you that your energy planted an even bigger seed, because all you had to do was show up as the energy of a healer who has been healed and is being healed, and that energy supported their healing, if not now, at some point in the future. For that seed energy was transferred from you to them.
Thank you.
How
Yeah, my
fascinating.
my oldest nephew said that he wanted me to go with him to take his driver's test.
You're sweet. You won't scream at me. And you're
Exactly.
understanding. And you have unconditional love.
Well, I'm sure if I were his mom, I probably would be screaming, but
Not your car. Not your insurance policy.
it's easier when it's other people's kids, right? That you
Exactly. So true. So, what a fascinating background. And we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to chat about how we can help others to heal their inner stranger. And we're going to take questions from the audience when we come back from break. Right now, we have to sell some soap here on the New Thought Media Network.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe DeMuro. New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Greetings. And we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity with Sooyong Kim. Now, Sooyong, I absolutely love the portion on ancestral healing, but there's so much more in your book. Tell us a little bit more about the overarching experience of your book.
Some of the aspects of my book have to do with creativity.
Hmm.
I believe that creativity is crucial in living your daily life.
Hmm.
And some of them have to do with accepting yourself, as I mentioned before, and
Yes.
really examining yourself to see where you are in the process of self love.
Hmm.
Because unless you really love yourself, then it's really difficult to love other people, as you know.
Yes. Okay. So thank you. That is very helpful. So we've got a couple of questions. We first got a question from Reverend Jane Batt.
Do we read it, or I mean, what?
Everybody can read it. It's already on the screen.
Okay, all right. Yes, definitely. I mean, I feel that I have a connection with my ancestors. I mean, especially my dad, who died when I was 13 years old, and even my uncle, who just passed away last year, because they're brothers. So they kind of seem to be hanging out together. And I think my uncle is getting a real kick out of what my dad's been doing on the other side. My dad was a medical doctor, so he kind of has that healing thing going on as well. And he's one of my guides. And I just have so many guides on the other side. I mean, not just ancestors, but for some reason, I know so many people who have passed away. I mean, from Aikido, from different groups that I'm in, different communities. Of course, in our community as well, the Metaphysical Chapel. So I feel that they're around. I mean, if you want to access them, and I feel like a lot of them are kind of. I can sometimes sense them laughing and just having fun. My maternal grandfather, who was an independence fighter in North Korea during the Japanese occupation, I can really, I mean, he was this really strong man who, rode a big horse, and he was very physical. And I can really feel him just when I'm doing something new, for instance, like I'm going sailing or something, and I can just feel him like experiencing it with me and just really enjoying the process with me. And unfortunately, during the Korean War, 1950 to 53, he was shot in the spine, and he spent the last 16 years of his life as a quadriplegic. So I feel like he especially enjoys the physical activity that I'm involved with.
That's beautiful. And as a sensitive, when you started talking about your dad and your
Mhm.
dad hanging out with his brother,
Yeah.
I could feel their love for you as
Mm.
if they were your own cheering section, and how they have been so deeply involved in your life, especially your dad,
Mm.
and how your uncle was kind of fanning the flames of that love from the other side now, making you stronger. The challenge with being a sensitive is when someone opens up, as you just did, it opens us all up to that healing ancestral energy that helps us to transform anything, including our feelings of being an inner stranger. Now, Bella wanted us to expound on that a little bit more because I may have taken some of the words out of your mouth when I talked about feeling like a stranger based on your experiences. So, if you can chat about feeling like a stranger a little bit more and how that caused you to transcend any labels into recognizing and experiencing yourself as a soul.
My experience since I was 7 years old when we moved to Malaysia is that I'm always the only Korean woman in the room. I mean, even at the chapel, right? I mean, you know,
True.
So it's followed me my whole life. I mean, everywhere I go, and it's really interesting because I went back to Korea a couple of decades ago, and I was just amazed that everybody was looked like me and was like me. That was a new experience for me. But now I feel a little bit strange if I'm in a group of like all the same kind of people because I'm so used to having the multicultural people around, and I really enjoy that. But as you can imagine, I mean, growing up in New Jersey, Pennsylvania in the 70s, there were really not that many Asian people around. I mean, now, of course, I mean, Korean culture is just so huge, K-pop, K-dramas, and so forth, BTS. But back then, believe me, people were just like, oh, you're from Korea. And of course, they would call you names because you look different. And they would make fun of you and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, all about that. I mean, most of us who look different have experienced that kind of thing. And I remember once in high school, this woman in the supermarket was screaming at me, and I really didn't understand why. And then somebody told me that her son had died in Vietnam, and she thought that I was Vietnamese, so she thought she should scream at me. So, I mean, those kinds of experiences when you're a young kid are kind of hard to handle, and you're really not sure what to do with it
Yeah.
until later.
And
Yeah.
yes. And it makes you feel stranger, like a stranger. It
Hmm.
makes you feel like an alien.
Yeah.
And thus, feeling as if you don't belong makes you feel like you don't deserve. And those
Right.
feelings of undeservingness can be a barrier to prosperity on any level and in many ways because you don't feel that you deserve it. And so
Yes.
it is important for us to address this, whatever our difference is. For you, it was quite acute. For many, it can be acute because of the legacy of discrimination
Yes.
from slavery or the immigrant journey of most Americans. Because no, the only Americans who are Native Americans feel like a stranger because they were kicked off their land. So
Right.
we're
And
a country of
yeah,
strangers.
and they came from somewhere else. I mean, they weren't originally from here either.
Right. Exactly. They didn't call this the New World for nothing, right? But so everybody has had to some degree an immigrant experience
Yes.
or another. Some were had an immigrant experience that was involuntary. Others had an immigrant experience that was voluntary yet equally difficult because every wave of new immigrants were on the bottom of the social ladder.
Yeah.
So help us understand some of the things that we can all do to address that inner stranger, that part of us.
I really believe that it's important to have a spiritual practice and to find something that you resonate with, some kind of a healing practice, meditation, movement, and so forth, and really get your inner guidance, to get in touch with your inner guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do with a lot of my clients is to do a meditation to access your inner wisdom. And
Okay.
then what I do is I facilitate the process, and then all the information is really coming from a part of them that is
Mm.
the higher being. And it gives them a lot of, I ask questions, and it gives us a lot of information about things that are going on that they have questions about and they don't really know what to do with. And so that's a very helpful process.
Okay. Now, do you do this with your clients as a part of your shiatsu practice or as a part of counseling? Tell us a little bit more about that, Sooyong.
Yeah, I mean, some people are not really open to this kind of thing, but if I ask them if they would be willing to do a guided meditation to access their inner wisdom, and most of them say yes. I mean, once in a while they don't want to, but especially if they're experiencing something that is really difficult And that's been going on for a chronic kind of situation, and they don't quite know
Mm-hmm.
what to do.
Mm.
Then I said, well, all the information is really coming from you. I mean, it's not that I'm telling you what to do. So then they know that it's it's not going to be harmful for them. It's going to be a part of them that's the wise being.
Okay. So, one of the first things that you would recommend, just in summary, is that people get in touch with their higher, wiser self by
Yes,
any
yes.
means necessary, whether it be therapy, talk therapy, movement, meditation, emotional release. Now, tell us what role movement plays in that, because I know you do uh, Tai Chi and stuff as well. So tell us about movement and what role movement plays in either releasing old energy or getting in touch with inner energy and growth.
Yes, I mean, I myself, I'm involved with Aikido, which I absolutely enjoy, and that's why I'm still doing it after many, many years.
Hmm.
Of course, you
What
can
is
find,
Aikido?
I'm sorry?
What is Aikido?
It's a martial art that originated from jujitsu and judo, and but it's really the founder really wanted to base it on peace and love. So, I mean, basically, what you're doing is instead of killing the other person at the end, you're pinning them so that they can't move.
Okay.
So you're not harming the other person.
Hmm. Yes. So Aikido is a martial art, but it sounds also as if it is contemplative and it offers you an opportunity to concentrate. Is that accurate?
Yes, definitely. And you have to be very focused because people are attacking you, have to deal with it.
Okay. So you're contemplative yet focused on that fist coming at you.
Yeah, but you have
Okay.
to be peaceful in
In
addressing
addressing it.
yeah, addressing
And,
the
and
threat.
that's kind of a metaphor for life, right? A
Yes,
metaphor for
definitely.
life. Life is punching at you, yet you have to be calm,
Hmm.
centered, collective, cool, and respond with love.
Yes, yeah,
So
and not
that's
hurt
what,
the other person. That's
and not
important.
hurt the other person in the process. Okay. Okay. So I have a daily spiritual practice. Part of that daily spiritual practice is sitting in contemplation, becoming aware of your surroundings, becoming aware of your feelings, and addressing the situations with love. Would that be accurate?
Yes,
Okay. What
and
other Go ahead.
okay, so it's really helpful to have practices that you really enjoy, or I would say, I mean, not practices per se, but things that you enjoy doing. I mean, I love being outdoors, so I'm out in my garden a lot, and
Hmm.
just being out in nature. That's a
Hmm.
very, very healing environment. And
Hmm.
Mother Earth, I mean, Mother Earth is really willing to help you heal.
Mm. So, so in other words, meditation doesn't always involve sitting in a chair in the house and doing Om.
No,
Meditation could be a walking meditation in nature. Meditation could be gardening. Communing with spirit, communing with light, communing with the infinite energy could be going out and turning cartwheels. It could be at the beach with the sand in your feet. Is that what you're saying?
yes, and I find that joy is really important in the meditative process because, for instance, I mean, laughter, right? I mean, if you're really
Yes.
laughing, then you're meditating at the same time and you're healing, but it's
Yes.
fun at the same time. So, what more could you ask for?
This is true. Our beloved Kalista does this thing called laughter yoga,
Hmm.
which is one of the most fun spiritual practices I've ever experienced.
Yeah,
Because laughter is cathartic, it's emotional release, it sends out energy, creating a void for new energy of joy to come in. And so
yes,
I've always
sure.
found that to be very helpful as well.
Yeah.
So we have some other questions. So let's look at some other questions that we've got. What fosters a living faith in oneness? From Wayne.
What fosters a living faith
Yeah, in other words,
in oneness?
how can we develop more faith and comfort being in a consciousness of oneness?
For me, it's something that you really experience tangibly. let's say you're in deep meditation and then you really feel that you're all one with the whole universe.
Mhm.
And it's a feeling for me. I mean, it might be different things for different people, but I can tell you that I had that experience.
Yes. And to me, it sounds almost like, you know how in Reiki training they always say, do the Reiki until you feel a shift in the energy?
Hmm.
So it sounds like you sit in meditation until you feel that shift in the energy, that shift from duality to that shift in oneness. The energy actually tangibly shifts. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes, I definitely feel it. It's not something that I think I imagine or I'm making it up, but feel like I definitely feel something.
Okay. So that's another thing. Sit in meditation, sit in contemplation, become aware of your inner workings. Listen to the world. See what the world is throwing at you. Respond to it in love. Sit until the energy shifts. These are things we can do to heal that inner part of us that has felt alienated. Is there anything else that you would suggest, Sooyong?
Well, in the process of working on ourselves, I mean, I think we have to be gentle with ourselves because very often we come from a background, and most of us do, where, well, you did this wrong and that wrong, and okay, you need to correct that, blah, blah, blah. So I
Yes.
think you really have to imagine yourself as a toddler, maybe learning to walk. I mean, you're just doing the best you can, but if every time you do something wrong, you fall down, I mean, somebody's like hitting you or something, I mean, that's not very productive, is it? So
Not at
you
all.
really have to treat yourself with love and
Mm.
imagine that you're your best friend or you're a baby or something like that would be very helpful.
Okay. In other words, there are no mistakes, just lessons to be learned.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's very helpful, Soo Young. Well, I want to thank you so much. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss a few other things. So we're going to go to break right now here on the New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you.
I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Here and now I can see I was made beautifully. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love.
we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network. Sooyong,
Yes.
did you have any additional thoughts on anything else you wanted to share with our audience tonight?
Yes, I do want to mention relationships because I believe that that's a crucial part of the healing process. And of course, we have our family of origin, which is really the most important part. I guess we decided to choose that family for some reason to heal. And so it's important to look at that part. Of course, some people I know have very toxic families of origin, and sometimes the best thing is to kind of leave, to let go of that. But to look at our everyday relationships, I mean, not only the important ones, but even the very brief 5-second relationship that we have with somebody who's a teller or a clerk or somebody that you pass by on the street. I believe that each one is equally important, and to look and see how you react and how you decide to interact with that person.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And we have another question from Jane Badge.
Well, I mean, having mystical experiences, you definitely will not be able to share that with everyone because some people are just going to say, hey, you're crazy or whatever, you're cuckoo. But I think it's important to have community where you can share those kinds of experiences with people that you can trust and whom you know will not judge you for them.
Okay. So, in other words, if you feel like an alien in the world at large because of your mystical experiences, you will not feel like an alien in a community of like minded individuals who
Right.
see you, support you, and are a reflection of that aspect of yourself. So, find community, in other words.
Yes, it is important to find community. I know I belong to a lot of communities, and with some communities, you really cannot tell them that I'm communicating with my dad who has passed away.
Right,
That would not be acceptable.
right.
But
In other communities, like, oh, you too, huh?
yeah, right. But sometimes I'll say, like in my family, for instance, I mean, they will accept dreams. So if I
Mm.
say, oh, I had a dream about my dad, they will accept that.
Yes, I find that often if I'm compelled to give a message, but it's in a public forum with someone who doesn't subscribe to all that head spinning message giving stuff, I use phrases like, I wonder if, and what would happen if, and if they were to say that to you, what would that feel like?
Right. Yeah, there are
So,
ways of imparting the message.
yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, anything else you want to share with our audience at this point, Sooyoung?
I do want to mention a couple of things in my book as well, which is to allow the flow to happen
Okay.
so that when you can release a lot of the fear and the doubt and the shame and all that, then you can just allow things to happen the
Hmm.
way that they will happen, that they are supposed to happen,
Hmm.
and for
And,
your
and
higher self.
interestingly enough, what you're saying is that shame and guilt and feelings of alienation and not enoughness block the flow of
Yes,
good that could be your prosperity. Would that be accurate?
yes, that is accurate. And the thing is, if that happens, then maybe you want to manifest something, excuse me, in your life, and it's really taking a long time to manifest, and there's so many roadblocks along the way, so many speed bumps. But if you can release a lot of the fear and the doubt and the shame and anger and whatever, rage, then it'll be a much easier process for you to get there.
Yes. And that is a book that we've got on the screen right now. Immigrace, Immigrant Consciousness Healing for Beginners. And I would extrapolate that it is for the immigrant consciousness, but in a sense, we all feel like immigrants. Although for many immigrants to America, it's more acute. We all feel like strangers in a strange land, especially highly sensitive people on a spiritual path. I am so thankful that you agreed to spend some time with us tonight, Sooyong. So what are you working on these days?
Well, I am continuing to work on my book, and I'm trying to figure out whether to look for an agent and so forth. That's been a long journey to try to find an agent.
Yes.
Maybe self-publish. I don't know yet. But
Mhm.
how about you, Reverend Jim? What are you up to?
Well, I'm up to no good. I've got a new book coming out. I've got a new book coming out on September 1st. It is 30 P's to Prosperity. And it's a mini ebook because my big book, I call it the big book, almost like a 12-step program. But the big book is The Miracle of Prosperity. And it's 266 pages. And it is a full workbook on creating your prosperity. But I've done some spin-off books on it. The first being Create a Self-Manifesting Vision Board, since that seemed to be a topic that most people were interested in. The second being Prosperity from A to Z, which is a brief primer on all of the prosperity principles and practices. And while I was writing that book, when I got to P, I kept going. P is for this, and P is for that. P is for this, and P is for that. And I realized P, there are 30 P's to prosperity. And so that's what's coming out on September 1st. And you'll have it available on Amazon.com as an ebook on September 1st. And I've got a new set of classes coming up. One set of classes that I've got coming up beginning on Monday, September 11th, is Spirit Speaks on Past, Post, and Future Lives. Fascinating topic. But Spirit is going to give us each individual insights on the past lives that we have had that affect this life. But then they're also going to give us insights into what has happened between lives, our life planning process, so we can understand why we may have planned some of the lives that we had, and especially why we planned this life and what was the benefit of planning this life, because at times this life doesn't seem like a barrel of monkeys. And Spirit is going to work with us on how we can clear and heal our trauma so that we can plan our next life to be trauma-free. Now that's fascinating too. So that's Spirit Speaks on Past, Future, and Between Lives, beginning on the 11th of September. And then I've got a companion class to that called Healing Family Relationships. And that's on Thursdays beginning September 14th. And that's 6 weeks as well. And we're going to do work. We're going to do meditations, prayers, healings, letters, exercises to help us heal family relationships. Now, we can heal family relationships even if the other family members do not participate or are not there. And we're going to use some mystical processes to do that. So that's what I've got going on. It's going to be a wonderful September, a wonderful fall, and I know it will be a wonderful September and a wonderful fall for you too as well, Sooyong. So once again, I want to thank you for joining us tonight here on The Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network. Good night to you, and thank you for our audience. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thank